skills. Now, if we're talking about your driving skills, for example, then you'd know how you got them, and you'd pay good money, you'd probably go to a school, you'd be tested before you're allowed to drive a car. Well, why? Because of the risks and dangers involved. Two others. What about parenting? Does anyone teach us how to become good parents? Well, yes and no. Yes, because we learn from our parents and the examples that we see growing up as children and when we are grown up as well. But sometimes we need to ask ourselves some important questions. For example, discipline in our society. For example, our values, violence against women. For example, our performance. How competitive are we with Japan? Are we just as creative, as innovative, as hardworking? Why? Are our parents to blame? Well, partly, but then as soon as you become an adult, you're responsible for fixing the things that you know your parents failed at, and that is the hard truth. And that's what I'm going to be talking with Platini about. I want you to join me. Just post your questions, comments, suggestions, or even shout outs to the TV3 Sunrise wall on Facebook. Just find us on Facebook. It's TV3 Sunrise. Just like us and let us know what you really think and feel. Platini, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Are you really good at football? Well, how do you get that name, Platini? I keep asking you this question. I always forget the answer. I think I've got attention disorder, something. Isn't that what you call it?
Yeah, yes, attention disorder. But yours, I don't think it is.
Or maybe it's my memory.
You are growing. It comes with age. Yeah, it comes with
my children
age.
keep telling me that I'm suffering from andropause. They say, Daddy, you promised us all brand new iPad. I said, I didn't say that. They say, oh, your memory is going. You're too old.
Maybe you are preoccupied with so many things at the time. So,
okay. Now, Platini, I'm looking here at some research that, for example, shows that young children who do not get a lot of affection, like in a direct way, reinforcement, support, encouragement, even physical touching, hugging, often are not as successful as those who do. In fact, if you don't get a lot of loving care and attention, physical affection from your parents, you are very likely to fail in life. Is this true?
it is true. The first 3 years of the child determines what that child becomes. When that stage is mixed up.
The first 3 years of the child.
The first 3 years of the child.
Now, how has our thinking changed over the centuries, over the years, as to what and how we should do to and for our children in the first 3 years of their life? Because I know that we have, things like, children are better seen, not heard, spare the rod and spoil the child, and then charity begins at home. People love to be disciplinarians, but then we seem to confuse discipline with punishment. How has modern thinking in terms of education and parenting changed over the last 100 or so years?
Yeah, with the Industrial Revolution, people, mothers and daddies are at work, leaving the kids at home. So that contact is no longer there. That's one problem. Yesterday's disciplinarians, today you see them not to be disciplinarians. They were people who caused a lot of harm to the generation past, and they are passing it on to us. That's what we're experiencing. A disciplined person is somebody who acts not out of fear, but because he or she is convinced about what he is doing. Unfortunately, that's not what our parenting style seems to do. You are beaten, when that is not there, that's the end. You do whatever you want. So there are no principles there. What we need is what we call positive parenting.
What is positive parenting? We keep talking about positive parenting. What is positive parenting?
It's living your life in such a way that your life becomes an example to the child. And then it is democratic. It encourages bonding.
Democratic parenting. That encourages
bonding. In the house, your life becomes an example to your kids. There's communication, there's dialogue. There's no fear. The child speaks up his mind, he makes a mistake and you correct him. Not that daddy is always right. Whatever he says is final. Even when he makes a mistake, he cannot come back and say, I'm sorry, what I say is wrong. That is not democratic. So all these values must be picked from the home, and the child sends it out. Unfortunately, kids who are brought up in these autocratic homes go out thinking that the world belongs to them, and they can bully anybody, and they are the type in school who normally they believe that when you have the upper hand, you can walk through life bullying people, and they do that in school, and they are always in conflict with teachers and their friends. So the parent becomes a role model for the child, and the child carries that behavior into the outer world. Unfortunately, when these type of people find themselves in our services, police or military, the society is in a mess.
Our research, sorry for interrupting you, because you mentioned society, and I'm talking about our behavior, and our behavior is often driven by our beliefs.
Yes.
So many people in our society will say that, well, they believe in all the good things. They'll give examples of religious, leaders, messiahs, prophets, and so on and so forth, and say, well, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I believe in Allah the Merciful, I believe that God is a God of love, and so on and so forth. I want to ask you how our relationship with our parents during our formative years, that's the first 3 years of our life, determines our relationship with God.
The way the daddy relates to you will determine how you see God. If you have that daddy figure who is that wicked, always beating you, there's nothing you get from him. I can give you an example. There's this young lady I work with who was saying, because of the way she grew up with her father, you cannot ask him anything that will give it to you without insulting you. She finds it difficult to go on her knees to pray and ask anything from God. See, that mentality is so natural. It happens unconsciously. So the child grows up, most of her grew up thinking that God was some bearded guy somewhere with a cane in his hand looking for people to help. And that is not true. Christ came, the message he brought was love. And that's the foundation of Christianity. Unfortunately, parents who claim to be Christians are hurting their kids. If the very hands they are supposed to lay on them to pray for them. How can you be hurting me and tell me that you love me? It sends a mixed signal to a child, which is not right.
Talking about mixed signals, I have noticed time and time again that in our culture, as part of our upbringing, both at home and at work, we often punish children with activities that are actually good for our society. So when you're asked to clean, to garden, to fetch water, and so on and so forth, these are actually good activities that people are supposed to aspire to, not consider as punishment. Picking up rubbish, cleaning, this is good, this is sanitation. And when it comes to personal well-being, activities such as physical exercise, press-ups, push-ups, squats, and so on and so forth, these are also really good physical exercises, but we seem to mete them out to our children as punishment. What are your thoughts on that?
It is unfortunate, Eric. Some years ago, GS was against punishing children to eat. Whatever you are forced to do becomes negative in your mind. People think that it is a punishment keeping the environment clean. That should not be a punishment. The child should be taught to keep his environment clean. What is the idea behind the punishment? Is to make amends. For instance, if the child pours water on the floor, you don't go around shouting, beating the child. Just encourage him to clean it. The child learns there and there that anytime I mess up, I need to correct it. When the child hurts somebody, make sure he apologizes. So that's the way it should be. But when you start teaching people, with pain, they grow up and think that it's wrong to do this. So somebody drinks water, you put it there because nobody is there to force him to pick it, and which is wrong.
But this is the way that many of us were brought up. How can we change our thinking and our behavior so that other children, young children now looking at us, would have different models? They would model their behavior on different beliefs and different practices. How difficult or how easy is that?
It's difficult because whatever a child lives is what that child becomes. But you must consciously work on yourself not to repeat the mistake our parents made. I've read a lot of people who argue that this is the way we were brought up and we turn out right, forgetting that they've not turned out right. Emotionally it affects you, psychologically it affects you. That's the way I was brought up. I was very timid. I couldn't speak in public. And that's the sad aspect or the sad issue in our society today. You are humiliated, you are degraded. You are told that you are not nice. They give you all the names they can. You walk through society thinking that that's what you are. So it becomes difficult to face the larger society.
Well, talking about names and and stigma and fear of others or larger society, you work for Orphan Aid Africa. Now, your organization takes care of children who come from extremely vulnerable or violent or abused backgrounds. So I can understand how you would teach them this sort of stuff. But many people say, well, I have both parents, or my child or my children have both parents. They are neither orphans, nor have they been abused, nor have they been neglected. Do you think that the wider society should also adopt the same values that we try to instill in children who have been abused or exposed to extreme neglect and violence?
I think what you need as a society today, you need to spend a lot of money and quality time in teaching parents and even teachers what is positive parenting. People will tell you that I'm all right. You cannot see the psychological effect of abuse. You cannot see the emotional effect of abuse. I've talked to well-educated people, married women, who will be shocked. They are going through emotional abuse in their homes they cannot talk about. These are issues that you cannot find, nobody can see, but inwardly you feel it. People get withdrawn. It leads to depression. So it's a problem you have as a society. You walk to a house, they have all the money, they have whatever they have the cars, everything. What the average Ghanaian child needs today is an ear to listen to them. Parents are buying all the electronic gadgets they have. So these kids grow up and pass through society, and they have emotional problems.
How much time should a parent spend, like in genuine positive parenting contact with their child on a daily basis? Considering that parents have to wake up, go to work, come back very tired, maybe get a little bit to eat, watch a bit of TV, then try to get some rest.
Eric, even if it is 1 hour, that hour can be a qualitative hour. What you need is to sacrifice for your child.
What are the positive parenting activities?
For instance, I get back home late. Instead of going to watch football on TV, I put my TV off. I'll sit with my kids and start asking whatever happens in their day, in school, at home. They will tell you what they have on their mind, and they will ask questions. That 1 hour could be enough to help you develop that bonding between you and your child. Unfortunately, most of us, we are afraid to put our kids first. Saturday, you are supposed to be at home. Maybe there's a club, a game somewhere. The parent is gone. Sunday, the child is to school. And then eventually there's no contact, which is sad. Some children live with their parents in the same house or the same room, but they don't know them. Daddy leaves at dawn before the child wakes up. Daddy comes late when the child is asleep. Then the television probably or the internet cafe becomes the parent. What is your child picking from the TV? What is your child picking from the internet cafe? What is your child picking from the street? These are the things we need to look at. We need to give quality time. We spend quality time with our kids. What they need is us, not the gadgets, not the electronic gadgets, not the internet, not the TV. They need our presence. They need us to listen to them. It's very important in parenting.
Where can parents in Ghana, actual parents or would-be parents, get the sort of information on what you call positive parenting?
What we do, we work with schools and we normally talk to parents at PTA meetings, educating them on the basic things they need to do. This is a platform we are using today. We wish we could get more platform to discuss this, because we need it. If world peace begins at home. Non-violence begins at home. No matter what you do outside, no matter the amount you spend on peacekeeping or how do you call it, conflict resolution outside, those guys are already up. They already mess up. They will keep on making a mistake. Let us not spend a lot of money on parenting. Let us not spend a lot of money educating parents what to do, how to train their children without violence, and gradually you get to that place where peace will no more be a problem for this world.
Platini Ashagbo, Counselor of Orphanage Africa. This sounds so wrong, but it makes me almost wish that we're an orphan and I could benefit from the sort of counseling that you must give out to the children of orphanage. Do they like you?
Oh, they like me.
They like you, and you like them?
I like them. I live by what I preach and preach what I live. I don't tell them don't do this and do the other. So my life is an example for them to follow.
So you're saying a positive parenting demands that we practice what we preach.
What you preach.
So if you preach kindness and respect, you have to demonstrate that in the home, between the parents and others, and between the parents and the children.
Exactly. Unfortunately, there are so many things you do at home which creates confusion in the mind of the child. And Tiama is coming to ask for onion. The onion is the mommy, they put it in the locker, tell her it is not there. You are teaching your child to tell lies. That is the reality. Daddy is sleeping and there's a phone call. Pick the call, tell him that I'm not in the house. Your child will pick it. He's trying to tell lies. And then when your child deceives you, you beat him up. Meanwhile, you, the parent, you are the one teaching him that. Whatever the values you want your child to pick, live by those values. It may be difficult because what I went through, and I'm not here blaming my parents, not blaming my educators. They had very good intentions for me, but they used the wrong method. What we are preaching today, maybe 20 years, 30 years to come, the next generation may have better information. We must work ourselves. The mistakes our parents made, let's not repeat them. Unfortunately, I see these young guys who are becoming new parents telling you that's the way I was brought up. So that's what I must do. And I tell young ladies who are going to get married, ask the guy if he believes that your child should be beaten because he was beaten, I bet you he will slap you one day and say, I'm sorry.
Next time you come, Platini, I would like us to look at psychological or verbal abuse, because many experts would say that the psychological wounds and the psychological scars from verbal and behavior abuse cut even deeper and stay even longer than the physical ones. I've been talking to Platini Achegbo, he's a counselor at Orphan Aid Africa, and cutting-edge science research methods of the day tell us that as we have been treated during our formative period, that's between the ages of 0 and 3. Actually, it starts when you're still in your mother's womb, but we'll talk about that later. So we tend to treat others, and this is based on implicit emotional patterns that are encoded, that are literally programmed into our young limbic brains at that age. Children who have not been traumatized in any constant way by their parents, in other words, children who do not hear abuses, insults, and don't receive traumatic punishments from their parents, will be better able to cope with whatever comes their way, because they will have access to the full range of their natural feelings, and they will have better communications and problem-solving skills.